guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we do a creepypasta called KiyoshiSNES. Now, first of all, I'm going to have to do this creepypasta word for word. Not because it's a mindfuck creepypasta, mostly because it's written in a way where it's best read, word for word. Also, there are points when the character hears, basically speech coming from the game, and I'll basically have those, speech moments on the screen. Also, this is the first creepypasta I'm doing that has come from our very own wiki, where you can post your own creepypastas. So, if you can't post your creepypasta on the creepypasta wiki, there is a link in the description below where you can post it. I do have to give a big thanks to Deoxys Gaming and Dark Dragon, that's his YouTube name, or his or her YouTube name, and their actual, wiki and name is Sir Eris Lionheart. But yes, I do have to give a shout out to those two people. Their channel, links will be in the description below. They actually helped a lot in getting this creepypasta set up, as well as a bunch of other people this wiki set up, so I gotta give a huge thanks to them. So without ado, let's begin reading this creepypasta. Excellent. I never thought the day would come. My older brother and I finally had a chance to enjoy each other's company in a long time. He's always been working ever since my mother passed away. As for me, I was busy pursuing my dreams as a baseball player. My father, whom had left my mother before she died, was living in Tokyo, Japan. We don't communicate much. We never really did. I also have a sister. I absolutely despise her, considering the fact that she's always been a snobby and annoying brat. It was Saturday. My brother's party is often on the weekend, but due to some strange event that had happened, the party he planned on attending was called off. My sister had been in here listening to music as always. I didn't bother talking to her today because it would have resulted in a fight. That's how it usually goes. She always complains about how I have no respect for her and whatnot, and that I'm always disturbing her. Therefore, I was in my room, staring at the ceiling like I usually did, thinking about what life would be like if Mom was still here. The thought always struck me. My brother told me that she was a cancer victim. Considering the fact that I was so young at the time to even remember what had happened, even though I have siblings who live with me, I've never felt more alone in my entire life. While being drowned in my thoughts, I failed to notice my brother standing in the doorway of my room. He startled me. "What are you up to?" my brother asked. I gave the typical response that I would normally give, as though nothing was ever bothering me. "Nothing," I said. He gave me a strange look, and then he pulled something out of his pocket. It looked like he had some sort of cartridge. The cartridge looked as it looked like it was in very good condition. He tossed it to me and continued to say, "I thought I would get you something. We don't spend much time together, so I thought I'd play a game with you." He had a huge smile on his face. We had a Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which we never used, simply because we didn't have any games for it. It was a gift from our father. We were both happy to be able to bond with each other, and I laughed and continued and, told him that I've been waiting for a day just like this, just you and me. I picked up the cartridge and I read the label on the front. Earthbound was what I read. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I asked my brother where he'd gotten the game, but he avoided the question and told me to start the game. "Did you steal it?" I asked. He smiled at me and replied, "Oh, come on now, I wouldn't go to such measures. I've been saving up to surprise you. This is my gift to you." His smile was fake. It was easily noticeable. It was almost as though something was bothering him. Ignoring what he had said, I continued to put the cartridge into the system. The game started up. Static was going back and forth across the TV screen, when finally some text as well as pictures were visible. Earthbound, the war against Gygus. The picture was a picture of what looked like an alien invasion happening in the middle of an unknown town. The game looked awesome. My brother sat down beside me and joined me. The screen faded out and letters started appearing, sorting themselves into their respective places to form the word Earthbound. It was very quiet. I turned to my brother and asked him what this game was about, but before I could even open my mouth, the screen cut black. I didn't touch the controller. Neither did my brother. The screen immediately transitioned to what looked like a robot in the middle of nowhere, standing outside of what appeared to be a cave. "Get your controller," I frantically told my brother. "The game started," I added. He tried to join in. It wouldn't let him. "So, it seems like this is single player," he stated. I looked back at the screen, "But we were here together, right? And that's all that matters to me," I said. He smiled. Using the controller, I walked towards the cave. My character appeared in a very uneasy environment. The ground sort of looked like veins of some sort. They were pulsing. As I walked further, I heard a faint noise. That had been getting louder as I walked forward. It got loud enough to the point where I could hear it clearly. Josei no shi no kumon is what I made out of it. I'll never forget it. It was disturbing. My brother had a look of shock on his face. "Is this part of the game?" I asked. He didn't reply. I continued on throughout the map, only to hear a girl screaming. The scream was blood-curdling. It sounded as though she was in immense pain. As I kept walking, I saw a huge-looking figure. I don't know how to describe it. It seemed as though there was an egg in the middle of the figure. Music faded in, and as I was unable to move my character, the music sounded as though it was being played backwards due to the distortion of the sounds. Suddenly, something seemed to be hatching from the egg. The egg fully opened up and a face appeared. The face looked as though it was a real photograph of a woman's face. The poor display of pixels made it hard to make out the woman's facial details, but as far as I'm concerned, she looked shocked. Shortly after a long pause, the woman started to cry. The crying sounded realistic. Her crying got louder and louder to the point where she had started to scream. I was covering my ears. I didn't want to hear it anymore. This was scary. My brother looked puzzled, as if he was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The screaming stopped and it was quiet again. I could move again. I started walking forward, and when I got stopped in my tracks, I was unable to move again. Immediately, I heard a demonic voice. It was deep, terrifying. From what I heard, the voice murmured, "I am happy." The screen cut black. A text box had appeared. Text slowly started appearing inside the text box. Eventually, the sentence finished. "Do you know the truth now? Cry, 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 while I slit your female's throat." This didn't make any sense. Then, some more text appeared. January 22nd, 1976. The next text box appeared. "Do you know what it feels like to be bullied, rejected? I've been waiting to die." The text box then appeared. Suddenly it appeared as though it was engaged in a battle sequence with nobody. The background was moving. The red smoke formed what looked like some skull's face. Then there was some loud screeching noise during this. At the bottom of the screen was a status bar, Paula. That was the name that was shown. The game gave me a number of options for the fight, but the only one that seemed to work was an attack called Pray. Since the other abilities and commands were faded out, seeing this I chose Pray. "Please give us strength. Anyone who can hear our plea, help us." This seemed odd considering the fact that it was the only character on the playing field was Paula. The screen faded to black, followed by a sprite of the character I was playing as laying in the middle of nowhere. The atmosphere was black. A text box was then shown. "Don't you love how helpless little girls are? Women that fall under such categories should die, don't you think?" The text scrolled up, revealing more text that said, "Mother. Satan wa anata no karada o joshio shi qui rooni shimashu." Sorry if I couldn't pronounce it right. This isn't my native language, but anyways. The screen shifted frames and closed up on the character's face, followed by a loud scream from a woman. It was Paula. She had an upside cross on her forehead and Japanese symbols on her cheeks. I don't have much knowledge on Japanese letters. The extent of what I know is from watching anime on my free time. The screaming stopped and a whisper could be heard. It sounded realistic, no distortions, almost like a voice recording. "Do you love me?" is what I caught from the whisper. Right after that, the screen went black and it was very quiet. One last text box appeared. "Your dear old dad, Kiyoshi Okobo, is thinking of hitting the hay tonight." The game then froze. My brother didn't say a word. No, terrified. "Kiyoshi Okobo," my brother whispered under his breath. He grabbed my hand in haste and brought me to his laptop, another gift which was given to him from our father. He searched the internet only to find out that Kiyoshi Okobo is the name of a serial killer who was executed on January 22nd, 1976. Throughout research, we also managed to find out that all the victims were female, that ranged from the ages of 16 to 21. He had accepted his execution willingly. I slammed the laptop down and looked at my brother in the eye. I'd never portrayed this kind of emotion towards him ever. "What the hell did you get this game from? Tell me," I shouted while shaking. "It reminded me of Mother," he replied. "What the hell do you mean?" I shouted. "Mom, she wasn't a cancer victim," he whispered. He immediately got up and left the room. I hurried after him. He ran outside and got into his car. I ran towards his car as fast as I could, yelling for him to come back, but he refused. He turned his head towards me and said something. I couldn't hear him over the engine of the car, but I could read his lips. "Goodbye," he said. He drove away. Here I was, abandoned by the most important person in my life. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I didn't want to go back inside. I didn't want to see that game again. I couldn't pull myself together. Tears streamed down my face as I looked up to the sky. Why? I thought to myself. What did I do to deserve this? Mother. I fell to my knees, sobbing on my driveway. I had been outside of my driveway for about an hour now. I had finally built up the courage to go back inside. I slowly walked in through the front door. I walked up to the stairs leading to my bedroom and cracked the door open. I took a peek at the TV screen. The text box was still there. Without thinking, my first instinct was to destroy the game. I was trembling. I popped the game out, smashed the cartridge into pieces with a baseball bat I had gotten from my sister's room. Not sure what she was doing in there. That didn't matter, though. What had me scared now was taken care of. I laid into my bed in relief, when suddenly I heard the doorbell ring. Odd, we never have visitors, I thought to myself. I quietly proceeded down the stairs towards my front door. As I opened the door, I noticed that it was a woman. She looked like she was in her late 40s. "Mommy's home from her business trip. How's my little boy?" she asked with a wide grin on her face. I was in absolute shock. I didn't know what to say. She knew my name. She proved to me that she was really my mother. She knew everything about me, even my favorite food. Nobody knows my favorite food except for my mother. We talked for a while and explained to her everything that had happened while she was gone. The game, my brother, everything. She looked as though she was in disbelief, and she told me I was having a bad dream. Disregarding the fact that I had just made myself look like a retard, I saw no point in even trying to explain the situation to her. She would not listen. "You're right," I said. "I think I'll just head off to bed," I added. I had trouble sleeping that night, but I was eventually successful in doing so. To little notice, I was woken up by what sounded to be an explosion. That my house was shaking, I couldn't move. It eventually stopped and I got off of my bed. Surprisingly, I felt calm. I went to check up on my mother as well as my sister to see if they were okay. As I got to my sister's room, she immediately turned up to me and said, "Hey bro, did the sound wake you up? Were you freaked out?" I had no words. I then went downstairs to find my mother standing in the middle of our living room. She turned around and said to me, "What was that noise, Ness? You don't seem scared?" Well, now I know I said this wasn't a mindfuck creepypasta, but what can I say? I did it for the lulz. Now first off, I'll give you a little info on the serial killer. His name is Kiyoshi Okubo, and he was also known as Tanigawa Ivan. He was born on January 17, 1935 in Gunma, Japan, and died by hanging in January 22, 1976. Okubo raped and murdered 8 women, aged 16 to 21, just like the creepypasta detailed. Okubo was quarter Russian. His mother was half Russian, half Japanese, and that describing his, nickname Tanigawa Ivan, or his pen name if you want to say that. Okubo was bullied in his childhood by their children a lot, and when it came time to paying for his crime, Okubo didn't even appeal his court ruling and took on his execution that was ordered upon him. So yes, this is a real serial killer. This is real. This isn't fiction. In fact, the guy was so infamous, he had a TV drama on his crime in Japan called The Crime of Kiyoshi Okubo, making him, in a sense, more famous and even deadlier than Hidaka. Now, some of the Japanese I couldn't translate, as I don't know the language, so for those who have, knowledge on the language, feel free to tell us in the comments below. Now, of course, there were some blatant signs in this creepypasta, especially the word Earthbound, and among others, but the beauty was that it was written in a way where, it wouldn't lead many people to assume it's a mindfuck creepypasta about Earthbound. With the incorporation of, some very unsubtle mentions of the game layered by a mask of being a genuine story, I only really figured out that the player was actually Ness, in the end. But, in retrospect, there are some moments where you can see this as an Earthbound mindfuck pasta. When they're mentioning the father, never really being around or no communication really happening with him, and also when the mother knows everything about Ness, even his favorite food, and not to the intro of Earthbound where you answer a brief questionnaire. Now, I haven't played Earthbound in a long time, and it's definitely in my replay this game this month list. Now, there were some moments that did seem kind of off to me, but, I'll get to that a little later. The dialogue also seemed pretty authentic to me. In fact, with the history of the serial killer, the dialogue, was fitting and it was genuinely creepy. Mind you, I am not a serial killer expert. There were some unanswered questions, but from what I can infer, the player, or rather Ness's mother, wasn't a cancer patient at all, but an actual victim of the serial killer. Now, I don't know how she was resurrected or came back. Maybe that burial ground in the Zelda 2 creepypasta that I did a while back might have a connection. I don't know how that worked. Even the brother said that his mother wasn't a cancer patient, so maybe this idea of, resurrection might be true. Even though, that does kind of sound, unrealistic. Very unrealistic. These are really the problems I have. Now, some things are unexplained or seem way too questionable to even be close to realistic. But then again, this is a pretty good creepypasta, and hell, if you look past some of the flaws, this might just be some creepy backstory to Earthbound, if you think about it. In the end, I thought this was a really good creepypasta. I enjoyed it almost as much as I did Zorax, and I do recommend you all to go check it out. Links in the description below. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudahar, and I'm out.